My name is Shay Sosanya. I'm co-founder and CEO of Gravity Sketch. And here at Gravity Sketch, we're creating a 3D design platform for designers, engineers to essentially get on the same page, designing immersively in a 3D environment. And so through this, they can actually streamline their productivity and workflow. A lot of the critical conversations that need to happen during the production or design of a product actually need to happen very early on, because those downstream effects could kind of surmount as the project moves forward if you miss something. So my background is in manufacturing and industrial design, and I've faced these challenges first time head on, and it's really just kind of frustrating. And from a human perspective, the breakdown between engineer and designer, it really doesn't need to happen, because we have a common goal. We're trying to build a product, we're trying to launch a product, and we want that product to be successful. But the tools and methods that we use to discuss are not really fit for purpose. We should be talking about the 3D idea that we actually want to bring to market. So we've been working primarily with the automotive industry for the past 2 years here. And we have some great clients. The one client that we can talk publicly about is Ford, where they've been using our collaboration features and bringing in stakeholders at every level of a design of the project, at the very early aspects of the design, to kind of troubleshoot and even bringing in like interior designers and exterior designers to talk about how that project may come to fruition and how the product may look once it hits the road. So it's a pretty exciting time for us. It's like, take your sketch into 3D, but then even go beyond that. Yeah, so my background's in mechanical engineering and industrial design. And there, when I was working abroad, I was working actually in Taiwan. And the design team and the engineering team often only spoke when it came time to make a prototype. And often the designers would speak with their beautiful sketches, like very nice perspective sketching, and engineers would come with their, very clean orthographic views. And those never really matched up when it came to the final prototype. And so we ended up spinning our wheels a lot of times with the manufacturers, trying to get the just the right prototype made. And what I felt was missing was this communication at every level of the design process and engineering process. And what I wanted to try to stimulate in those discussions with the designers and engineering team were, why don't we go to the factory and speak with the vendors? Why don't you guys come across the hall and speak with the design team before even starting the design process? And it just never really stuck. It was really hard to kind of change that internal culture of a designer and engineer. And so I came to London, where I met Daniela, my co-founder, and she's coming from a very strong industrial design background. And she had a similar issue, like, why can't my prototypes ever come out exactly the way I want them to? And so this was our thesis work. How do we make a platform where people that are trying to develop an idea can communicate together, bring that idea out very early on, and have a very clear, transparent way of communicating? Because a sketch is a great way to communicate, but everyone's idea of perspective completely shifts once it's kind of processing in the brain. So we don't really see anything in the brain in 2D. We see everything in 3D, but we use these tools to communicate into 3D. And so we felt that with the rise of augmented reality and virtual reality, this would be a great way to remove the screen or remove the two-dimensionality of that process, to just ideate directly in 3D. And so this was our kind of foray into VR. And since then, it's been hurdle after hurdle. Obviously, the industry has taken a little bit longer to pick up than what we initially thought. And so we spent some time working at Jaguar Land Rover, where we saw firsthand, and we tried to break down some of those gaps firsthand. And eventually, products became more affordable. And it's funny because it's targeted towards gaming, and it just reduces the price dramatically. So we started to see these VR headsets pop up in our studio, and we thought, okay, we should probably go full time on this thing, and we did so in 2017, and since then we've been selling into the automotive industry and trying to help them really streamline that communication gap between design and engineering. We actually started with the community, and we started working by offering the product out there at a very reasonable price on Steam and some of the other platforms, because we couldn't just grab a company and say, hey, start using our product and give us feedback. We did that with a couple, but it didn't land so fast, because you end up getting siloed into these little pockets of like innovation where they're not really doing the core work that we were trying to promote and support. So we let it out, and the community actually reacted quite positively. So we started up a Slack channel and then a Discord, and we really tried to uncover where our product would sit in that workflow. And I think we've been talking about it so far. It's really around empathy. How do I bring in the engineer or How do I bring the designer and the engineer together so that we can properly talk about this concept before we decide to, attribute a certain amount of resources towards the project? And if we talk about automotive specifically, when you move from pen and paper sketching in Photoshop to making a mock-up of even a quarter scale clay model, you're making a pretty big financial investment. And really what those designers need to do is they just need to see that from their perspective in 3D, and they need to understand where the limitations are. So the engineer should be able to tell them, okay, actually you need to pull the wheel arch out a little bit, or we're going to actually change the wheelbase. And so some of those critical conversations can't be made until you have something physical, 3D. And with virtual reality, you're able to go up to one-to-one scale at a sketch level. So you're able to like sit down in a seat, and you can draw out the whole dashboard, the whole driving experience, the line of vision, the door handle, all of that, at a very kind of, I don't know, it's like cheaper than pen and paper in a lot of ways. Once you get it all set up, of course. So that's been the way that we've kind of gone to market, and it's kind of working with the community, and the community helping us understand where the product is fit for purpose. And then a lot of these people in the community are actually professional designers, because design is not a 9-to-5 gig. People don't really jump into design to become rich and wealthy. They jump into design because they're passionate about it. So they're thinking about it 24/7. They go home, they'll buy a gaming PC and a VR headset just to try something that can unleash their creativity. And we want to harness that and really feed that, as well as learn from that, so we can help these companies move faster and build better products, but just help have a much more enjoyable workplace, to be honest. So every day I'm pretty blown away by some of the stuff that people are doing in the platform. But one thing working with some of these bigger automotive companies that has been surprising to me is that, well, in a way it's been surprising, and I guess we could have assumed that this would happen, is when you strip away the need to use linguistics and mathematics to navigate through a software, you actually democratize greatly the ability for other people in the organization to get involved. And by nature, you would think, okay, I give this tool to a designer and he's just going to blow it away. But designers have been trained over, let's say, the younger designers over 5 years of education, and the older designers, 25 years of industry experience to sketch on 2D, to actually use some sort of resting their hand or arm on a flat surface and use that force feedback. And when you give this tool to someone who isn't used to that, there is this hard kind of transition from moving from our normal ways of expressing ourselves creatively into this gestural way of expressing ourselves, which inherently we have the kinesthetic knowledge and the spatial knowledge. I mean, we have that as humans. We move through a 3D world, but you may not be able to connect those two dots together on your creative side. And what we found is that some of the engineers and some of the clay modelers who are actually working with 3D problems every single day, and not only behind a screen, they actually just take to it straight away, and they'll actually be offering really credible designs and solutions to problems. So it becomes this 3D problem-solving session, and I feel like what was missing before was just their voice in the earlier stages of the process, where a design would get pushed through, but then they'd have to be the bearers of bad news. And that's where the friction started to bubble up between designers and engineers, was, an engineer saying, you can't do that. It's impossible to make this. But by having those conversations very early on and giving tools to people to express themselves in 3D spatially from the onset, it's really brought those teams together a little bit tighter. And so that's been the most surprising and interesting part of this journey so far. Yeah, it's been a pretty big rush to the platform from some of our customers, in the sense of now they want to work remotely. So can we actually start to deploy some of our remote collaboration tools off-site? So we were working a lot with on-site in terms of setting up with their intranet, and now we're working with like cloud solutions to allow them to collaborate from home. And it's been really interesting because we've actually been jumping in and doing virtual training sessions and having discussions in some of our meetings in virtual reality from like moving from like WebEx or whatever the other platform we would use at the time into this platform. And we have like much richer discussions, and we're actually able to kind of like get a better sense of some of the problems that they're outlining. So it's been a nice transition for us. It's unfortunate circumstances, of course, but it's also something that's helping accelerate this idea that we've already been talking about for many years, of a way for you guys to stay connected around the globe. If you have studios in Japan and studios in California, how do you guys collaborate? And you send these heavy packets of data back and forth, and nothing ever happens in real time. So it's kind of triggered and pushed forward for this real-time collaboration remotely, and hopefully that will change the industry. It would lower the carbon footprint for a lot of these companies as well as remove the need for physical models.